wanes.
If they improve the charging experience, they know that was critical to selling more EVs. One of the single biggest reasons that consumers are not adopting EVs is because they're concerned about public charging.
A look at EV fuel stations. That's next on Marketplace. We'll be back with All Things Considered at 7 tonight. Right now, it's 74 degrees. We'll see lows in the upper 60s tonight. Tomorrow, rain is in the forecast, probably in the afternoon. We'll see highs in the upper 70s again. WNYC 630.
WNYC support comes from City Harvest, who are on the road every day rescuing 77 million pounds of nutritious food a year for New Yorkers in need, transforming surplus food into sustenance and sustainability. That's how they feed good. More at cityharvest.org.
This is WNYC, 93.9 FM and AM 820. NPR News and the New York Conversation.
Marketplace is supported by Commvault. In business, things happen like cyber attacks. Commvault rewinds data, cloud apps, and environments like it never happened. Commvault for continuous business.
What's really happening in the Trump economy? The headline numbers don't tell the whole story. From American Public Media, this is Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by Yubico, makers of the YubiKey, protecting the applications and accounts that people and businesses rely on every day. YubiKey helps stop phishing attempts and hackers. YubiKey, still undefeated, the original passkey. More at yubico.com.
In Denver, I'm Amy Scott, in for Kai Rizdal. It's Thursday, August 28th. Good to have you with us. First, the headline. The U.S. economy grew faster in the second quarter of the year than previously estimated. The Commerce Department said today gross domestic product from April through June grew at a revised 3.3%, adjusted for seasonal factors and inflation. That's higher than the 3% officials estimated last month. Revisions are standard business with GDP as more complete data becomes available. We'll get a third estimate next month. But the fine print is pretty important on this one. Marketplace's Matt Levin has the story.
What's that post office slogan again? Neither snow nor rain nor gloom of night will stop you from getting an American Express offer in your mailbox today. Well, economic data doesn't work like that. When a massive storm hits the Gulf Coast or a polar vortex freezes the Midwest, jobs numbers or retail sales may be misleading. And after April 2nd, Hurricane Tariff-Palooza made landfall.
It would be like another storm of sorts, and it certainly had an impact on GDP without any question.
Charles Lieberman is Chief Investment Officer with Advisors Capital Management.
It's visible. You can see how much imports were distorted.
The twist here is the way GDP is calculated. GDP is the final value of goods and services produced in the U.S., so imports are subtracted from that. When tariffs hit and imports were cut by about $340 billion last quarter, GDP went up, although that doesn't mean the economy was booming.
So these are just massive, massive numbers that overwhelm everything else, and you have to cut through that noise to get a sense of what's going on underneath the economy.
If you only look at what consumers and businesses were buying this spring, GDP was still growing, but not as robustly as last year, says Brian Colton at Fitch Ratings.
That suggests to us that, there's clear signs of an underlying slowdown.
GDP has found a partial replacement, though, for that somewhat slowing consumer, AI. Or more specifically, big tech firms spending hundreds of billions on AI data centers. Gregory Dacko is an economist with EY.
We are seeing signs that investment in AI and investment in the construction of AI-related infrastructure is providing a significant boost to economic activity.
Dacko says he expects that AI spending to boost GDP well into next year. I'm Matt Levin for Marketplace.
That data center spending Matt was just telling us was a big factor in GDP. It's enormous. When chip maker NVIDIA reported earnings yesterday, its CEO estimated that this year alone, AI infrastructure spending will total $600 billion. and reach 3 to 4 trillion by the end of the decade. All that investment is helping prop up a whole bunch of companies in construction, real estate, energy, and more. Marketplace's Nova Safo spent the day looking at where all that money is going.
Data center construction started exploding hand in hand with artificial intelligence. Consulting firm McKinsey & Company estimates build-outs globally will total nearly $7 trillion. Eugenio Aliman is with Raymond James.
It is really difficult to compare what is happening today to other type of investment.
Still, Aliman took a shot. He says it's analogous to the buildup of the internet itself.
We have to go back to the end of the 1990s where we saw this very, very large investment.
Back then, we were building telecommunications networks. Now, it's giant complexes to house servers.
Projects are popping up across the country, and it definitely has been an expansive market.
Daryl Neapolitano has a front row seat at building materials supplier Amrise. It just made a deal with Meta to provide cement with a lower carbon footprint, an important factor for doing business with tech firms.
We're focused very much on how we can decarbonize the supply chain itself and actually just meet the schedules for the projects, which are typically fairly aggressive.
It's having a tremendous impact on the construction industry.
Eric Gauss with market intelligence firm Dodge Construction Network says the amount of data center business for the sector has grown from the hundreds of millions in the mid-2000s to tens of billions a year.
One of the things that we are forecasting is that the data center construction sector is going to be larger than traditional offices,
balancing out the contraction in that area of the economy. I'm Nova Safo for Marketplace.
Wall Street today saw no contraction. We'll have the details when we do the numbers. 3 Mile Island in 1979, Chernobyl in 1986, Fukushima in 2011. For a lot of folks, these disasters are what come to mind when thinking about nuclear energy. But over the last 5 years, public and political perceptions of the controversial power source have been shifting. Reporter Jennifer Hiller wrote about it for the Wall Street Journal. Jennifer, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much.
The headline of your story is Nuclear Power is Having a Pop Culture Moment. How so?
We think what we've seen just in the last couple of years and kind of with increasing volume is that nuclear power has become popular in kind of a strange way. It's been kind of out of fashion for decades, and the last few years has really become just more a part of the energy conversation, either for just climate reasons or because we're entering an era where we need to build more power generation.
You know, I cover climate, and so I'm hearing this, of course, from activists and scientists, but you write about, you know, influencers, like this model, Isabel Bemeki, who's, you know, kind of made a career talking about nuclear power online. What's her story?
Right. She's a Brazilian model. She lives in the US and, you know, several years ago started reading a lot about climate and had climate concerns. And then a scientist that she follows on Twitter basically put out a message several years ago about nuclear reactors. And that kind of sent Isabel down the rabbit hole of research there. And yeah, she decided to become a nuclear power influencer, which was not a thing that really existed before.
And I think we have a clip from one of her TikToks we can listen to.
I am in the control room at the Crane Clean Energy Center, formerly known as 3 Mile Island Unit 1. And this is such a cool historic power plant that is now going to be restarted, which is just extremely poetic. It symbolizes all of this new excitement about nuclear and how we are rewriting the story of this very misunderstood clean energy source.
Okay, so she's talking about 3 Mile Island, which most of us know from a big accident in, 1979. Nuclear still does have a reputation among folks who've been around for a while for accidents and, of course, waste. Has the industry gotten safer?
I think the industry really improved safety a lot in the wake of 3 Mile Island. A lot of procedures changed at plants and, they're a very safety-focused industry. There have been some high-profile incidents. 3 Mile Island was the biggest sort of civilian nuclear power incident here in the U.S. There was Chernobyl in, I believe, 1986 and Fukushima in Japan. And so these just were so high profile that it kind of took the luster off of nuclear power, and a lot of countries just kind of lost interest in building more plants. So we've got a large nuclear fleet in the US. There are 93 operating plants, but we just haven't seen a lot of new additions the last few decades.
Of course, what's changed in the last few years is not just concerns about the climate crisis and carbon emissions, but the rise in AI and the demand for electricity. You write that public perception has really changed during this time. Why do you think people are getting more comfortable with this idea?
I think part of it is that things like 3 Mile Island are starting to seem like they're pretty far in the distance. There's a lot of people today who were not alive at the time that happened. The industry has had a pretty good safety record in the US since then. And, as you mentioned, we have rising power demand because of things like AI. And so, it's just kind of entered the conversation from the tech world, and that's gotten obviously really noisy in the last year and a half or so.
Well, especially now that the Trump administration is taking aim at other forms of clean power, specifically solar and wind, and trying to roll back progress there. Is nuclear power our best hope for reducing carbon emissions?
I mean, I think that remains to be seen. I think what the nuclear industry has to sort of answer is whether they can kind of build quickly and meet that moment. The projects historically have taken a long time. They've gone over budget, things like that. And so if you can sort of overcome that, there's a lot of companies that are still working on designs and getting designs approved and things like that. But we do appear to be kind of on the cusp of, something potential. It's hard to know at this point, like how big is it going to be? Like how much market share could it really take?
Jennifer Hiller wrote about nuclear power's pop culture moment in the Wall Street Journal. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Pending home sales fell in July, down 0.4% compared to June, according to the National Association of Realtors. Those are deals under contract that haven't closed yet. And what's happening in the housing market trickles down to other industries, including interior design, which gets us to today's installment of our series, My Economy.
My name is Melissa Fields. I am the CEO and principal designer of Shades of Grey Design Studio in San Antonio, Texas. I have been running my business for about 7.5 years now, so getting ready to hit 8 in January. Oh my goodness. So I was actually in the Air Force for 20 years. That makes me feel so old when I say that. But yeah, I started out enlisted and then ended up crossing over to what they call the dark side, got my degree and then got commissioned as a second lieutenant and then retired as a major in 2018. Even though we're pretty nomadic in the military, we move a lot, especially officers. We move every 3 years, depending on your job. But you still wanted to feel like your house was a home. And so I would just try to help people. I'm like, we could just get a remnant. We can't put carpet in here, but let's just go to this place and get area rugs. And, hey, we could do curtains. You can just take the curtain rod and just hang it up as high as you can. It draws the eye up. And little things that they're like, what are you talking about, Melissa? They didn't know what they didn't know, right? So I would just try to do little things, just really trying to spruce up what would normally be a very vanilla and boring place, right? Because it wasn't yours. It was the government's, right? It was government housing. So yeah, that's what I would do. I called it my side hustle because I wasn't charging anybody for it. I just absolutely loved doing that. I'm so grateful that the Air Force provides, programs for people that are transitioning from military life to civilian life. And so they would have boots to business. So I tried to learn as much as I could. But I think the closer I got to when I was actually going to hit the retirement button was when I was like, you know what, I'm really going to do this. I have military veterans actually reach out to us and want us to design their home. When I ask, why did they choose us? A lot of the times they will say, because of your military experience. It does make me a little emotional because I'm like, wow, I don't take that lightly. That means everything to me. And so it's already, whether you're in the military or not, these people are entrusting you with their home, probably the most personal space in their life, right? You're coming into their home where they're, raising kids and it's very personal and you're in their bedrooms and their bathrooms and kitchens and things like that. And so, it is very emotional and it means everything to me. So I don't take that lightly.
Melissa Fields, retired Air Force officer turned interior designer, running Shades of Grey Design Studio in San Antonio, Texas. Let us know your economic story at marketplace.org/myeconomy. Coming up,
we'll go, wow, there's a charger on every corner. I guess I can now get an EV.
Electric dreams. But first, let's do the numbers. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 71 points, just under 0.2% to close at 45,636. The Nasdaq added 115 points, 0.5% to close at 21,705, and the S&P 500 found 20 points, 0.3% to end at 6,501. So how did Wall Street react to NVIDIA's better-than-expected earnings report yesterday? Pretty meh. The chip maker subtracted 0.8%. Best Buy beat analysts' comparable store sales estimates and surprised everyone with a rise in sales thanks to strong demand for video game consoles, phones, and computers. Seems to be time to replace all of that stuff we bought during the pandemic, but the retailer did not raise its sales and profit forecasts for the year because of, you guessed it, tariff uncertainty. Best Buy gave back 3.7%. You're listening to Marketplace.
The Numbers is supported by Odoo.com, your entire business on one platform. Marketplace is supported by Progressive Insurance, helping protect small businesses and the owners that run them. Whether a plumber, accounting business, or restaurant, Progressive can help with over 30 customizable coverages. Online quotes available in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. And by This Old House Radio Hour podcast, answering listeners' DIY and renovation questions and diving into design and building science trends. This Old House Radio Hour podcast, available in podcast apps.
For many who left New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, it was too costly to return and rebuild. Others say strong ties pulled them home.
I had to make a choice of either I bring my business back or I build my home. And it was to build my home because that was my heritage.
20 years later, we hear from Ninth Ward residents about why they returned. That's on the next morning edition from NPR News.
Weekday mornings on WNYC. WNYC receives support from Vitagraph Films, presenting An Officer and a Spy. In 1895, French-Jewish captain Alfred Dreyfus is wrongfully convicted of treason and sentenced to life imprisonment, directed by Roman Polanski, now playing in select theaters.
You're listening to Marketplace on WNYC. In the 7 o'clock hour of All Things Considered, it's a big day for Amtrak as the next generation of the Acela trains, which can travel up to 160 miles an hour, start carrying passengers for the first time. That and more at 7.
This is Marketplace. I'm Amy Scott. Coming back to that GDP report, the Commerce Department also gave us a preliminary read on how corporate America is holding up amid shifting trade policy. Corporate profits were up almost 2%, or more than $65 billion in Q2. That's after a first quarter slump. Marketplace's Savannah Peters has more on what's behind the rebound.
The Bureau of Economic Analysis reports corporate profits a little differently than companies themselves.
The proper BEA terminology is profits from current production.
Which matters, says John Blank with Zacks Investment Research, because it's a measure of fundamental business activity. Capital gains and losses from stocks, bonds, and other assets, the BEA strips all that out.
This is actual production in the U.S. economy. You can actually manage to materially see this.
Like a car lot making a sale, or a construction firm investing in new equipment. And in the first quarter, corporate profits were down, says Ricardo Marto with the St. Louis Fed.
What happened was firms imported a lot of goods from overseas in anticipation for the increase in tariffs.
Marto says that front-loading tipped the scale. Sort of like with overall GDP. But stockpiling slowed down in Q2, and companies sold through some of that inventory.
And so we see profits going back up.
At a modest pace relative to recent history, according to Marto. But the rebound is a sign that corporate America is hanging in there.
For now is the operative term.
Gary Schlossberg is with the Wells Fargo Investment Institute.
U.S. firms have absorb most of the tariff increases without really damaging margins. Real test will be late this year, early 2026.
When companies will have to choose whether to keep eating the cost of tariffs or pass more of it on to increasingly price-sensitive customers. Schlossberg says either could take a bite out of corporate profits. I'm Savannah Peters for Marketplace.
It is an odd moment for the U.S. electric vehicle market. Sales and leases have been booming ahead of a September 30th deadline because after that, buyers will no longer be able to knock thousands of dollars off the purchase price with federal tax credits. Even without that incentive, though, Ford, GM, and Nissan are pushing ahead with new generations of more affordable EVs coming to the market in the next few years. The bottom line is that there will be more EVs on U.S. roads, and they'll all need places to charge. And as Marketplace's Henry Epp reports, that's a business opportunity.
Ron Matherly's main complaint about charging his 2022 Ford F-150 Lightning is that a lot of the supposedly fast chargers he's used over the years don't perform as advertised. Shortly after he bought his electric truck in 2023, he plugged it into a charger outside a mall near his Houston area home. But when he came back,
I wasn't getting the 250 kilowatts per hour out of the charger, but they were still charging me the 25 cents a minute.
His car had barely charged. He kept having the same problem at other chargers, too.
And what that did is it caused a lot of range anxiety.
The fear that if he were to drive too far from home, he might get stranded. But that changed when Tesla opened up its national network of fast chargers to other brands. He tried one at a gas station with the big convenience store attached.
And in 30 minutes, I had a full charge.
And while his truck filled up, he browsed the store's aisles and bought some food.
Get you two different ways, so to speak.
This business model may seem kind of obvious, offer reliable fast charging and something to do for 30 minutes or so. But it's taken a while for two big industries to really figure it out. Car makers have a vested interest in adopting it. Lauren McDonald is chief analyst with the charging data firm Perrin.
If they improve the charging experience, they know that was critical to selling more EVs. One of the single biggest reasons that consumers are not adopting EVs is because they're concerned about public charging.
Then there are retailers, especially convenience stores.
That industry woke up in the last couple of years realizing, oh my God, right? If these EV drivers, plug in and come inside the store, we have this captive audience.
Automakers and retailers plan to add tens of thousands of plugs across the U.S. in the next few years. The convenience industry feels like it has a head start in this race.
The saturation is already there. The locations are already there. The amenities and the attributes that drivers want are already there.
Carl Donges is with the National Association of Convenience Stores. They have an obvious advantage. People are used to fueling their cars there. But he cautions gas station owners that they can't count on a monopoly.
A lot of different businesses can offer electricity,
including car makers. After watching the success of Tesla's charging network, more of them are getting into the game.
So our strategy is to extend the Mercedes-Benz brand promise through our charging network.
Andrew Cornelia is the CEO of Mercedes-Benz High Power Charging, a company created by the German automaker to build a high-speed charging network in North America.
It has to work every single time. It has to be fast charging. But really what we're focused on is what you do while you charge.
A lot of their stations have lounges and food and canopies over the chargers, or they're next to a Starbucks or a mall. Another joint venture of 8 car companies called Iona is rolling out a similar concept. Then there's a big business that could give both convenience stores and car companies a run for their charging money, Walmart. It's working on its own massive charging network led by Adam Happel.
There's 4,600 or so Walmart stores just here in the US. We're targeting installing at as many locations as we can, knowing that it'll be literally thousands and thousands of the stores.
All, he says, in the next 5 years. If all of these chargers get built as promised, it could be a lot easier to juice up your EV in a few years. In some parts of the country, says Lauren McDonald at the consulting firm Perrin, those chargers could even start to outpace demand.
Maybe the good thing of that is those more recalcitrant buyers in those markets will go, wow, there's a charger on every corner. I guess I can now get an EV.
If you build it, they will come, or at least that's what companies are betting on. I'm Henry App for Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by Commvault. When bad things happen in business like ransomware attacks, Commvault rewinds data, cloud apps, and environments back to before the incident, like it never happened. Commvault, it's how companies become a continuous business. And by Viking, committed to exploring the world in comfort, offering a small ship experience with a shore excursion included in every port and onboard cultural enrichment. Discover more at Viking.com.
This final note on the way out today with a hat tip to Bloomberg. That revised GDP release we talked about throughout the show was also distributed on public blockchains. The Commerce Department said in a press release it published an official hash of its quarterly release to Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and several other blockchain platforms. A hash, I gather, is a sort of digital fingerprint that authenticates the underlying data. The move is part of the Trump administration's embrace of the cryptocurrency industry. Pretty sure Matt Levin just looked the data up on an old-fashioned government website. Our daily production team includes Andy Corbin, Nicholas Guiong, Maria Hollenhorst, Iru Ekpunobi, Sarah Leeson, Sean McHenry, and Sophia Terenzio. I'm Amy Scott. Hope to see you back here tomorrow. This is APM.
WNYC received